So on today's episode, we're going to talk about why identity is the future of the online checkout. It's a great episode you don't want to miss, so do stay tuned. All right, so warm welcome to today's episode of the 2X e-commerce podcast show. I'm your host, Kunle Campbell. The interview you're about to listen to is an interview I had with the founder and CEO of Fast Checkout, whose name is Domm Holland. Why should you want to listen to this episode? Well, he talks about why the web is fast transitioning from checkout form as a service to more an identity system. So if you don't know Fast Checkout, they are, I'd say, an out of the Shopify ecosystem checkout solution for all other platforms outside of Shopify. So we really delve into the beginnings of Fast Checkout, as well as just the net benefits of having a faster checkout regardless of what platform you're on. We talk a bit about headless commerce, and we just get in. He is such an open individual, and there's just so much to learn from him. They use a two-factor authentication system at their checkout that is fast. It's very similar to what Stripe and Shopify Pay have. They use email rather than they use email authentication rather than mobile authentication, which I found very interesting. And we had a conversation around that. An authentication code is sent to the email. They recognize an email immediately at checkout, and then an authentication code is sent to the email linked to a Fast account, and then you obviously can complete checkout. He also talked about profiling. Their checkout is an intelligent checkout in the sense that if it has seen me purchase golf equipment, it then sort of enriches my profile, that email, with that golf preference, which I found very interesting, which could be used in further use cases. If you're looking to just brush yourself on online checkout CRO, want to know a bit about payments, because he had a few things to say about Apple Pay and Google Pay, as well as PayPal, which he referred to as payment tokens. Listen to this episode. He's a great chap, likable. He's an Australian, and he's full of life and has some really interesting stories, so tune in. If you haven't already, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We're growing slowly, but we're getting there. If you're on iTunes, remember to leave us a review, an honest review, whatever country you're at, and whatever podcasting application you use or app you use, just hit that subscribe button as it pushes us up here, and it's just a vote of support from you, our listeners. Without further ado, listen on to Domm Holland from Fast Checkouts. Enjoy. Domm Holland is the co-founder and CEO of Fast, the world's fastest online login and checkout platform. He's an entrepreneur and self-taught engineer. Domm has founded and scaled companies in the logistics, transportation, and technology sectors. He previously founded and served as CEO at TOW, an on-demand vehicle towing platform in Australia that processed more than $50 million worth of transactions. During his tenure there, Domm was awarded the top spot on the Deloitte Tech Fast 50 and recognized as Brisbane's Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Domm has worked across Australia, the US, and he's worked on multiple multinational telecommunication and technology companies, including Dell. His deep focus, shall I just say he's charismatic. I feel like I've met him before from all those ads that come up on my Facebook and YouTube. It's an absolute pleasure having you, Domm. I feel starstruck.
Thanks so much. You're making me blush, but it's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Okay, let's get into a little bit of a backstory of Fast. I understand you lived in Australia. You ran Tow, which is like a towing platform essentially. Did good numbers, shut it down, and then started Fast. What's a backstory behind Fast?
Yeah, so I'm married to little kids, and as you can tell from my funny accent, I'm Australian and was living in Australia at the time. And we had my grandmother-in-law staying with us because my youngest child, my son Coda, was in hospital. And so she was helping us out at the time. And one night she was sitting at the kitchen table ordering groceries for us and forgot a password and just couldn't check out. One of Australia's largest companies, they do $70 billion a year in transactions, and she just, it couldn't figure out how to take this little old lady's money to buy food online. And I thought it was sort of preposterous to see, this little old lady sitting there, purse out, ID, credit cards, perfectly able to, able to buy something and just not being able to because of some arbitrary string of text. And at the time, I built a prototype. I spent 48 hours and built a prototype of a passwordless authentication system, which basically just means Magic Links is a service, right? You can put a login button on somebody's site. The first time you click it, we'll send you a link to log in. So no passwords required. You just hit the link on your email. The second time you click the button on any other website, one-click login, right? Because you've done it before, no need to do it again. Inside of a couple of days, had tens of thousands of people use it after I put on Product Hunt. And realized, that sort of my view of the world was shared by a lot of people, so that the current state of authentication and identity is just crazy. The fact that we have to continually, re-identify ourselves on every site, it doesn't make sense. Granny would have bought food, if not for some 10-character string for this one specific e-commerce site that, she shouldn't have had to create. And so, I spent a lot more time looking at that space, and I realized the fundamental problem isn't passwords. They're a symptom of that larger problem, that every business has their own pool of customers and their own pool of authentication tokens, and they have to re-identify every single person, and the entire checkout flow, right, the entire process of buying something is fundamentally flawed in that same way that you're replicating that same process each time. And so set out to solve that, and so I launched Fast on Pi Day 2019, March 14, 2019.
March 14, 2019. Okay. Right. Did you try to use, Fast on Toll on your platform, on the SaaS platform you were working on your previous startup?
No, this was well and truly after. It was 6 or 8 months after I shut down the last company. Yep.
Okay, makes sense. You touched on a lot of stuff in your answer, and one was the barriers and the unintentional, essentially, roadblocks in at checkout, on forms. Obviously PayPal has kind of solved the problem. Stripe have they do have a sort of one-click checkout solution. I think when Amazon's patent actually ran out, there was a lot of people started to have this one-click check. A lot of organizations started to have this one-click checkout. I know PayPal has something similar, but it isn't what you talk about in regards to Magic Links. So what are your thoughts on the state of the industry? From when you started Fast to now, 2 years on.
Sure. Yeah. Look, I mean, quite frankly, this isn't a solved problem, right? Still today, like you can probably today, numerous times this week, you would have already typed, your name into a form, your address into a form, your date of birth into a form somewhere, right? And probably in a checkout capacity. Now, I'm 34 years old, or nearly 34 years old. My name and date of birth hasn't changed in 34 years. I frankly, in a purely digital setting on my computer, I should never have to type that information again, right? It just defies belief. And so this is a very, very real and very big problem. When you think about other companies in the market, first of all, anyone claiming one-click checkout or one-click payment, the most important thing is to ask them where they're counting the click from, right? There's normally 20 clicks before they start counting a click. It's not a one-click checkout. It's a one-click on the last click payment thing. But everyone else that sort of you might think of as our competitors, they're very focused on being payment tokens, right? They're just like a replacement for you typing in your credit card information. And they might also have your shipping, address and name, but it's pretty simply and primarily centered around payment, right? It's the last step. So when you think about like the process of you buying something, right, you'll typically hear about a product, whether it's from an ad, whether it's from you've read a review about a product online, you've seen something on social media, you'll click a link, you'll go over to, you'll land on a product page, right? Maybe Google Shopping, right? You've seen a product, click a link, land on a product page, you look at the product that you like, you click add to cart, you click view cart, you click checkout. Then they ask you for your email address. Then you type in your email address, and then they say, great, give us your shipping info. And then they say, right, how do you want to pay for this? And then at the end of that flow, you have the option of Apple Pay, PayPal, whatever option that you like. That's the typical e-commerce flow. Now you can see there, as I mentioned, there's literally probably 10 clicks before you get to that point, right? And numerous keystrokes. And so even in a solution that speeds up the point of payment, they're normally buried at the end of this process, right? Because they need the consumer to buy, the primary reason that you have carts and whatever else is so that you buy more than one thing, right? And if you put Apple Pay or PayPal on a product page, then you're only selling one item to that customer, right? That's all you can sell. Because even if the consumer bought the product using Apple Pay on the product page and then kept browsing and then bought a second product, that's now 2 orders, right? That's 2 orders, which each has individual shipping fees for the consumer, individual shipping fees for the merchant, logistics fees, individual payment fees for the merchant, and everything's duplicated, right? So the costs for the merchant go up, average order values go down. So nobody wants that. So they instead have this concept of a cart, fill your cart, go through a checkout process, give them your info, and then they'll organize payment. And so none of these things are actually one click, right? Because they're there to solve not using your card, right? They're not actually solving the fundamental issues around checkout and removing duplication from the process. And that's somewhat different from the way that Fast operates. Yeah.
So it sounds to me like you're not necessarily solving a form problem where people are filling forms because it's a frustration. You're more or less, solving an identity problem. Because if websites know Kunle is Kunle, and then I bring out my credit card to pay, then I could truly swiftly move through checkout like it was a contactless experience.
Yeah.
So are you more a payments company or more an identity company where you're trying to get a map or you're trying to get a cross section of the entire adult population to have a fast checkout account, which would unlock the identity for several merchants? That's where the appeal is. It seems like.
Yeah, so the primary, we think of ourselves as an identity company, right? The primary problem of checkout is an identity problem. It's not a payments problem. Payments is essentially a solved problem in that merchants can can accept payments from consumers, right? That's not an issue. The big issue is that they don't know who you are. When you go to checkout, they don't know who you are. And so their answer to that is to put a form in front of you, right? This big long form that collects all of this information. And that friction point causes people to leave, right? 3/4 of people, sometimes typically more, will leave the site instead of filling the form in because they just can't be bothered doing it, right? They can't be bothered entering the same information all over again. And it makes all the sense in the world. And that's why the solution to checkout isn't a better form, right? And if you're an individual business, then all you can do on your own is to optimize that form, right? Optimize the flow as much as you can. And businesses do invest, especially large companies, a lot in continually sort of optimizing that flow as they should, right? But the solve to the problem can never be done individually, right? The solve to the problem always has to be to access some type of network, right? To leverage data that's already there. In the same way that we have credit card networks, right? That there's already a link between a consumer and a bank and there's, their source of funds. And so businesses are tapping into that through credit card networks, right? The same thing is true of identity network. How do you tap into the consumer's data through an identity network? And that's, and that is the primary, value that, or the biggest, unlock to creating value that you can have is to create a cross-merchant identity network, right? Which means that, yes, you never have to enter that information again, right? Once only, and then every site can access that pool of data. And it's really obvious, right? If you walked in, it's kind of funny that if you're walking down the street and you're thirsty and you see a store next door that's sells bottles of water, right? And you can walk into the store and you can buy a bottle of water, you walk up to the counter, tap your card and you leave, right? If you if when you walked up to the counter, they made you fill in a form with your name, email, phone number, and address before you got the bottle of water, you wouldn't buy the bottle of water, right? You'd give them the water back and say, "Don't worry about it. I'll go somewhere else." Exact same thing is happening online, right? Is you go to buy something, you go to buy a T-shirt, and they say, "Great, now we need all this information," and people just say, "Sorry, don't worry about it. I'll go somewhere else." It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand. It's just cumbersome. So the solution should and has to simply be to access a broader network. And that's why there are things like PayPal, Apple Pay. They sort of try and try and fill that gap. The big fundamental thing is, the point that we kind of get to is, it's not just the last payment piece, right? And the reason the payment is buried at the end is because there are other fundamental problems at play, right? Average order values and whatever else. And so what we asked when we first set out to build Fast Checkout was, what is the fastest and easiest way for somebody to buy something, right? Like, that is the fundamental thing that we're solving. And one-click checkout is essentially the answer, right? But it's not just one click, again, from the end of some long flow. How do you eradicate that flow? How do you eradicate the whole process and bring the one click to the start, right? Not 10 clicks later where everyone else is counting from. How do we actually count from the first? And so one of the biggest differences for us that you see is that we sit on every single product page, right? So there's a fast checkout button, and then there's an add to cart button. This is a really big difference. And like I said, it's not that you can't have an Apple Pay button or a PayPal button on product pages, but no one does because they're only selling one item. But when you use Fast, we have natively, our entire stack is built around this concept of batching. You click the button, instantly buy, right? Order complete. But then you can click the button on another product page, instantly buy, order complete. It's only one order, right? The merchant only has to fulfill one order. They've got one order with 2 items now. Right. So their average order value stays high. The consumer gets aggregated shipping fees, right? So if they had a $8.99 shipping fee on the first order, but then they hit the free shipping threshold when they hit the second product, now they get free shipping on the on the same order. And so we solve all of the fundamental problems, right? And it's not that they can't have a cart. They can still have a cart and have a look. But that if you do just want to click and buy, then we can allow you to do that, right? One-click checkout right from the start. So you don't have to go through any of that flow. And so that's our product today, right? That's what's out in market, that we have like literally nearly 1,000 merchants now using all around the world, right? In 13 countries at the moment, and lots and lots of consumers. Now, where we're going this year, like right now, that we're rapidly moving towards, is actually eliminating even more clicks, right? And so if you heard my original example about the e-commerce flow, is you're looking at a review, you're Google Shopping, website links, social links, whatever, and then click the link, go to the site, right, to see a product. So what if you didn't even have to click to land on the product page to then click fast checkout, right? Or then click add to cart or whatever else. And so this is where we can integrate the same checkout, the exact same checkout that appears on a merchant site, and put it inside the review, or put it inside the recipe to buy the knife block that the chef uses in the recipe, right? Or to buy the dress from Vogue magazine or whatever else. And so that fast checkout button can be used natively with inside content to sell directly from e-commerce websites, right? The same thing. So you can use the same fast checkout.
Fast checkout
button.
Makes sense.
The exact same button. Yeah, the exact same button you would see on a merchant's site.
To a product. It would be a fast checkout for a particular product in an article.
Typically, yes. We actually allow you to. So you could actually curate a cart or a shop the look or a whole suite of products. Your grocery recipe could list every food product that they want to sell, and then in one click you could initiate checkout for a list of products. So we do support that. But the most typical example is a single product, right? You're reading a review of a set of headphones, buy the headphones. That's a typical thing. And so you have a fast checkout button. But literally from that point forward, once you click the button, it's one click from there. And so you could still go to the site and have a look, or you can just click the button and check out. And so, this is like the ultimate in checkout. And things like Apple Pay, PayPal, Google Pay, they simply can't do this, right? Because they're not actually integrated into a store's order management system or store catalog or inventory or customers or anything else. Literally, they are just payment tokens. And so they're fundamentally like incapable of actually moving up the stack, right? They can only be the one click on the last click, right? They actually can't be the first click, one click. Yeah.
So there's context. There's two-way context with Fast. There's context on the merchant side, as you alluded to, where it's where it resides. What products are linked to this button, and then there's more context on the other side when you flip the coin with customers. So knowing who the customer is and ensuring that there's that smooth transition. Right.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, so let's look at the actual that gives me. I was going to ask you, and I'm still going to ask you this question around the architecture, just what it looks like. I'm sure that's a scrape the surface on your architecture. So in layman's terms, and this is for the benefit of the audience, which are essentially e-commerce teams that are looking for solutions.
Sure.
Essentially, what is the architecture? I from what I can gather, identity is the heart of I'm fast on the on the buy side, but what's the full on architecture?
Yeah, so we integrate more deeply with e-commerce platforms or e-commerce sellers platforms than a typical payment button, right? So again, instead of your website just saying, "Hey, process a payment of $45 for us," a customer actually tells us what they want to buy, and then we tell the store, "Hey, can you create an order for us for this T-shirt, this variant of this T-shirt?" And then and here's the customer information, here's the item information, and then the e-commerce platform will come back and tell us it's a $45 order, right? And so it's a slightly different flow, and that allows us to actually facilitate this one-click checkout both on and off site, and using turning checkout into a headless checkout solution. So if you're on a platform like a BigCommerce or a WooCommerce or something like that, you can just install a Fast app, and that communicates with our backend systems automatically. We do all of the integration work for you, and you just paste the little JavaScript snippet to put the buttons inside your website template or theme, right? And you can put that same JavaScript widget anywhere on the internet you like, right? So you can go to third-party sites, publishers, the recipe sites, and embed your button everywhere. And you'll see, I think, in H2 of this year, this is going to be the most transformative part of e-commerce, I believe, is this, headless checkout in terms of making checkout portable and actually putting this everywhere, right? We have marketing teams right now just realizing that now they can actually put these buttons, turn every marketing channel into a transactable channel. And that's, I think, that's going to be extremely disruptive to the sector.
So do you cover the mobile web, or are you also, making inroads into apps, into in-app purchases?
Yeah, H2 this year, you will have a native SDK available for mobile apps. So currently we support, web or mobile, web only, but our SDK is nearly ready. Yep.
Incredible. Interesting. And would you say, merchants listening to this that, or, e-commerce teams listening to this, that a fast checkout can coexist with a PayPal or an Apple or a Google Pay? Does it replace your traditional payment checkout? Normally you'd have a default payment checkout, and you'd have still the one-click mobile checkout, quote unquote, in your words, the payment tokens that exist side by side that form. So how would it look in terms of implementation from a merchant standpoint?
Definitely. So we make ourselves very easy to do business with, right? It's one of the easiest parts of of the engagement. So our commercial terms are really simple, but also how we sit, right? So typically businesses, when they first install Fast, just add the button. They add it to their product page, their PDPs, and they add it to cart and checkout, right, as an option. So we still support, obviously, cart checkout and traditional checkout as well. And so they simply add us. We're additive, right? So they can keep PayPal, Google Pay, Apple Pay, and a lot of sellers already have these things. They've got standard, slow checkout, and they keep that. And so we live happily side by side all of these products. What more and more we see is, about 2 months after installing Fast, we have lots of businesses who say, can we start removing some of these things? Like so Fast supports 100% of people, right? Backwards compatible, all of your existing users, all new users. They don't need a Fast account. They don't need to have ever heard of Fast to use it, right? The first time you ever click Fast checkout, pops up with a checkout form. It's really simple, right? Every other time, the next time you use Fast on any site, it just goes straight through to order complete. So you don't need something like PayPal. You really kind of need to have that PayPal account first. Apple Pay, you have to use an Apple device and have Apple Pay set up, right? They're just unusable. And so, for Fast, completely backwards compatible. We support every transaction size. We're not like buy now, pay later is limited to sort of small value transactions. We support the full gamut of transactions as well. So more and more we see retailers who start removing other buttons, voluntarily on their own once they install Fast. And we absolutely see some retailers just going exclusive using Fast, but it's not a requirement. It's not something we even push for. We're happy just coexisting alongside other payment methods.
You mentioned BigCommerce and WooCommerce, which brings me to the big elephant in the room, Shopify. Shopify has helped the small guy. They've really their reach is phenomenal. Was it 500,000 merchants or so? But not many people know Shopify really is a checkout company. Rather than an e-commerce platform. So they do not compromise with their checkout. So they have their lead product, Shop Pay. And how are you going to bridge this huge gap between the rest of the entire direct to consumer e-commerce space essentially, and Shopify? Or are they even? Is there any hope in your roadmap towards getting the Shopify team to support Fast?
Look, we're just not focused on the Shopify ecosystem. It is a very large ecosystem, but at the same time, if you look at the entire e-commerce market, it is still like very much the sort of minority of the market, right? The market, the e-commerce market outside of Shopify is far bigger than the e-commerce market within Shopify. It's not to say it's not a large marketplace and not a large player, but of course it is. But we just have so much greenfield opportunity that we're focused on outside of Shopify. That really is our core focus, and happy with that. Yeah.
And there are lots of discussions where there are a few discussions of merchants trying to find alternatives to Shopify, and as you said, it's much bigger outside.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, Shopify and Shopify's products have never done well in enterprise, right? And in fact, once businesses get big enough, they move off Shopify, and large merchants never use Shopify products, right? Shopify just doesn't have enterprise DNA, and nor do they build products that can support that type of merchants, sophisticated merchants. And so, frankly, it's just the enterprise market alone is far bigger than Shopify, right?
Indeed.
Kind of two of the big 10 US retailers are bigger than all of Shopify's ecosystem, as an idea for scale. And so it's that's obviously a bigger focus for us than Shopify.
Right. So what are your thoughts on the future of like the online checkout? Well, not just the online checkout, the checkout experience. So the reason I'm bringing this is Amazon. So Amazon, the Amazon Go shops. Are they called Amazon Go? I think they're called Amazon Go shops.
Yes, yeah.
Where their checkout less experience is you walk in, it knows who you are, and then you walk out. Do you see that more widespread, across the board? What are your thoughts on the future of the checkout?
Physical checkout, right?
Both.
Yeah, so I'm bullish on. I actually think the online checkout experience is far worse than in store, right? Again, if you think about like the example of going up and buying something, it's frictionless, right? You pull your card out, tap your card, and you bought it, and you walk out. That experience is actually really lovely, right? There is, as soon as you go to a digital experience, it's actually much harder, even in store, right? As soon as you go to Apple Pay, it's a clunky experience. Got to double tap on the side of your phone, then do Face ID, then kind of pay, and then kind of wait for confirmation. It's actually it's not frictionless. Pulling out your card is a more frictionless experience. As soon as you go online and you've got like forms and everything else, they're just like much slower. So I currently think that the process of paying in store is easier than the process of paying online, and with Fast we definitely kind of flip that and make it at least just as easy, right? One click instead of one tap. But historically online has been harder. It's not to say that there's not a massive in-store experience, and not have to pull out your wallet, not have to carry physical cards or whatever. And I think that that's true. I think that your phone has to be the token, right? Your phone fundamentally has to be the way that you kind of pay for things. Yeah. And I think that, like I said, the Apple Pay experience in your phone at the moment today is not very good. I think that it could be exponentially better. I don't think Amazon Go is necessarily the model that's going to win, right? And having cameras everywhere and hyper sophisticated AI that at the moment isn't reliable at scale and frankly isn't affordable, right? You can't be a local corner store and set up that sort of infrastructure, right? And so what is the infrastructure that's going to work at scale? And I think there's different models, but it's an area that we'd love to innovate, that we just are more focused on the online experience today. As far as online, I think this is obviously where we're keenly focused, solving checkout both on-site and off-site, right? And like I was saying, this sort of reading a recipe, buy the knife block in one click from the recipe itself, buy the dress from publisher's site, an influencer having an Instagram story and swipe up to buy. These are all things that we power today, that we can power for all of our brands today, and we have lots of the biggest brands right now scrambling to sort of integrate and launch. This is going to be really transformative, right? Watching a Netflix video and actually just being able to buy the sunglasses that somebody in the TV show is what we're wearing, all in one click, and we can power these interactions. So it's really exciting time. And then I think the extension of that, again, how do you eliminate more clicks, right? How do you eliminate more friction? Because as soon as you want to buy a t-shirt that you've seen on Netflix, then the first thing that we need to say before you actually buy them is, what size t-shirt do you want to buy, right? This is small, medium, large, extra large. And so it's just another click, right? But this is where we sit, and our opportunity as an identity company is that the first time you ever use fast checkout, normally you have to give us your name, email, date of birth, not date of birth, name, email, phone number, delivery address, credit card information, right? Really simple, 5 bits of information. Now you get one click checkout on every other site. So once we've got them, that's nice and easy. But when you click and buy a t-shirt from Netflix, and we would need to know your t-shirt size, and you sell us large, and we'll ship you a large t-shirt. But then the next time you go to buy a t-shirt on anyone else's website, well, we shouldn't have to ask you what size t-shirt you want to buy again. We should just at least default to large, right? I'd tell you that they've got a large in stock. That's a better experience for a consumer. It's a higher checkout, and conversion rate for businesses, because it's less friction from the consumer. And so naturally, we're kind of looking at how we continually evolve to collect, the information we need to make checkout faster for you. If you're booking an airline or an air ticket, plane ticket, the first time we need to collect passport information, right? Airlines need passport information. But next time you want to book a ticket on any other airline, one-click checkout, for planes using fast. So we're really looking at how we could sort of go further up the funnel to make that process easier.
That's genius, because at the identity level, you seem to be wanting to enrich identity profiles so that the context is always there when they're on fast checkout websites, essentially.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Okay. All websites that are enabled with fast checkout, right? Again, enabled, rather. The recipe, yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Super interesting. Okay, let's wrap this up. The final question I wanted to have before wrapping this up, I wanted to take you through a lightning round. But before we get into the lightning round, I think the final question I have is in regards to magic links as a service. You briefly mentioned what you briefly mentioned it. Do you want to sort of describe, explain it in a bit more detail? So this is like a passwordless, user experience, essentially.
Yeah, and so we actually we're still passwordless, right? So all the fast is a passwordless system. We don't use magic links anymore. We use pins instead. And so basically what it means is, if you give us, so when maybe to preface before I tell you how we do it, when you go to log into a website, right, they ask you for your email and password. They're trying to do two things. They're trying to both identify you and authenticate you, right? And that's why you've actually got two fields. Who are you? And then tell us the secret code that only you would know, right? Now, when you type in the email address, they just assume that is real and that is you, right? And then when you type in the password, they check that they match, right? But the number one form of attacks online are credential stuffing attacks. And this is where hackers go and, get lists of email and password combinations that they've stolen from, weak servers. And then they automatically try that same email password combination on thousands of sites across the internet, right? All of the biggest sites, to see if they can log in as you anywhere else, right? So, and it's because the website isn't actually verifying that that is your email address. They're just verifying that the email matches the password. So anybody could log in as you, right? It actually is very insecure. And it's because they don't the identification piece is assumed. The difference with Fast is when you give us your email address. So let's say you've used Fast before on your desktop computer, right? You've gone to buy something, you've given us your information once, bought the item. The next time you use Fast on that computer, on any website on the internet that has Fast, click the button, autocomplete, right? You don't never have to type in your information again. But let's say that one night you're now sitting on the couch watching TV on your phone, ad comes up, the product you want to buy, you use Fast Checkout. Now, we don't know that device, right? It's the first time we've ever seen your phone. We haven't seen that device before. So we show you the form. The first field on our form is our email field, right? And you put in your email address. You don't have to click anything. We just automatically detect straight away that we've seen that email address before. We know that email address from a profile that you used on your work computer, right, or in your desktop. And so then what we do is we send you a pin to that email, right? Straight away, we come up with a box saying, hey, we know we've seen you before. We've just sent you a pin, type the pin, right? It's really fast, obviously engineered for speed. On average, it's like less than a second takes to be delivered. When you enter the pin, unlocks the form, puts in all your information, and now enables that device for one-click checkout. It's a super slick process and it enables a new device. Now, it's far more secure than a password, because we have actually verified both your identity through the process of authentication, right? That PIN that you enter isn't something that a hacker can steal from a server. It's generated, it's a one-time password. It's generated every single time that you go to, authenticate a new device, and sent as a one-off to that device. So we don't assume identification, we actually prove it. It's a far more secure process. Yeah.
So why not mobile, PIN authentication? Why specifically email?
Far more secure. So the reality is that SMS is, is far more vulnerable to spoofing. And the secondary reason is that email is the primary identifier of the internet, right? So this is virtually every e-commerce site in the world uses email as an identifier, right? And not mobile. So if you are using mobile numbers as authentication tokens, which isn't the identifier that the business is using, you're not proving that they own the identifier that you're actually indexing to in their system. That's a very large security vulnerability, because you're proving that they own an identifier that the business doesn't actually care about. It might just be it's a contact method. And so so this is really, they're not very secure. It's something that we debate a lot internally. But we like I said, we have done extensive work on engineering our emails for speed, right? They do come extremely quickly. That entire process, obviously has teams of engineers who just look at that one process inside with us as a business. And we've gotten those email authentication tokens to be very fast. And again, you only have to do that if there's a security, if there's a need from it, for our perspective, from a security standpoint. Either you're on a new device for the first time, you change country, it just looks a little off, we'll send it an auth token, but it's infrequent.
Before I leave you, we're still going to get into the rapid fire, section. One final question was, you have access to a lot of, merchant data. What was the impact of COVID from a Fast perspective? So 2020, what did you see when COVID hit in March? And now,
people selling anything for homewares or anything for home renovation, sales went to the roof. Quite frankly, I mean, we're all locked inside, wanting to make our environments as nice as possible. Kids, kids equipment, play equipment, and anything around the house or home renovations. Yeah, I definitely felt the headwinds of that. Sport, there's still a lot in the sports sector who are struggling to have the levels of stock that they would have liked, even still now. So yeah, very interesting times.
What's your outlook for the rest of 2021 and 2022?
Yeah, so we're a very fast growing fast growing company. But at the same time, frankly, we look at where we are now compared to the size of the market globally. We just haven't scratched the surface, and so, and truthfully, our growth rate will actually continue to increase from here as opposed to decrease. And so, it's very exciting. Headless checkout for us, being able to put the checkout buttons in recipe sites and publisher sites and social networks, that is going to be transformative for the affiliate market, influencers, creators. This is really going to be exciting times for that side of the market too. So I expect to see very big things.
Yeah, I like the fact that you have the buttons branded, fast checkout, checkout with fast, or that call to action is there. Okay, let's jump into a rapid fire. Basically, I'm going to ask you about 5 to 6 questions. If you could use a single sentence to answer each question, it'd be brilliant. Okay, are you a morning person?
Yes, certainly am.
Okay, well, do you have a daily morning routine?
So I am one of those people who get up very early. I get up at 4:30. I train first thing in the morning for an hour. I do have my coffee and shower, and then I'm straight into work. I normally have my first meeting at 7:30, 7:45. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. What 2 things can't you live without?
Coffee and my family.
Okay. All right. What book are you currently reading?
MacBook, front to back, almost every single day.
Okay, front to back. What are your 3 indispensable tools for managing your business?
It's a good question. Slack would be the first one these days. Zoom would definitely be the second one, and I honestly, I would just say device as well, either MacBook or iPhone. Without those 3 things, I think we'd be completely handicapped.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Final question. What has been your best mistake to date? That means a setback that's given you the biggest feedback. Your best mistake.
Well, look, I mean, if I was still running my last company, I wouldn't be here now running fast. So, I think shutting my last company down in June 2018 was obviously opened me up to have the breadth to work on other things, and been the best thing that's happened to me.
Brilliant. And I'm just going on a segue here. Who does your ads?
Sure. All done in-house. We have an incredibly creative marketing team in-house. One of our earliest hires was a videographer who I hired him to create videos for hiring and recruitment. And he does a lot these days. But we've also got Kyle Tibbetts, our head of marketing, and Matt Kobach, our head of content. Angela is an incredible designer on the marketing team. A team of really phenomenal and creative people who are just creating really good content. Yeah.
Shows good stuff. Domm, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. For those who want to find out more about Fast, just head over to fast.co. It's that simple, and you get a ton of ads coming through to you to show you their use cases. Is there any other way they can follow you or Fast? Any social media platforms you guys are most active on?
Yeah, we're very active on Twitter, so you can follow me on twitter.com/Domm, DOMM, or Fast, twitter.com/Fast, and Instagram too, Instagram @Domm as well.
Brilliant. Domm, thank you so much. Cheers.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.